souls, transforming worlds to a better wonder to behold. No poverty, zero hunger for the elderly or younger. Good health and well-being, good education, empowering women to become sensation. Clean water, sanitation is a right of every nation. Economic growth inclusive and sustained through industry, innovation, and purely dedication. Yeah, infrastructure be gain. Reduce inequality for sure. Make human settlements secure. Take urgent actions to combat climate change. Conserve life below water and land. Ensure we do not estrange. Justice for all the peaceful and empathetic nations. Let us all partner to achieve these goals and provide much needed salvation. Each one teach 10, no compensation. Each one teach 10, no compensation.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, gerimet, terve, and maraban. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 92 of the podcast Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is a part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, my guest, not one, but two, we have Dr. Michelle Ament and Dr. Jordan Mroziak.
Hey.
How are you both doing today?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
Good. So, how's the weather at where you both are at?
Sunny here.
I'm so jealous, Jordan, because here it is cloudy and overcast and big plans for storms on this Saturday.
Mm-hmm. How was it there?
I can see the stars because it's night here.
Well, at least you see stars, which means it's not overcast. That must be beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see the stars once in a while when it's not cloudy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to take the pleasure of introducing my honorable guest today to all of you watching live. So, Dr. Michelle Ament is leading educational reform with Human Intelligence Movement, fearlessly challenging the status quo. Ament declares that traditional education is inadequate in the age of AI. Her visionary approach insists on prioritizing human-centered skills that machines cannot replicate. And Dr. Jordan Mroziak is a boundary-span learning designer, facilitator, and community engagement specialist, and having earned his doctorate in instructional technology with an emphasis on creative applications of learning technologies and critical aesthetic pedagogy, his work emphasizes the thoughtful reimagining of learning in order to best build habits around curiosity, empathy, community, equity, and joy. Well, I'm really excited to talk to both of you today. And to shoot out the first question that I have for you is, what exactly is the purpose of human intelligence movement? And Dr. Michelle, I would like you to take on this question.
Yeah, well, the purpose of the human intelligence movement we have three pillars to the movement, and it's really about creating awareness, building community, and shifting policy. And so a little bit about how this movement got started. Myself and Travis Allen, our co-president, really were thinking about how can we change education, what needs to happen in education, and began to really, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence coming into our educational communities, we began to think about how do we come together and create a movement with like-minded people who are really passionate about the need for change in education. And really that need for change lies in the fact that we believe our educational system is stuck in an information or a knowledge age. And we have been stuck in this period, this type of style of learning for a really long time. And with the rise of artificial intelligence, information is ubiquitous. It will be at our fingertips so readily accessible. Anything that I want to know, I could have Googled previously, but now I can ask a variety of AI apps to give me the information that I need. And so what we really believe is that we need to move from this information age to what we call the age of human intelligence, where we are going to be relying even more on our uniquely human skills. Things like how we communicate with each other, how we collaborate with one another, how we adapt with information, how we build relationships and have empathy. All of those emotional intelligences are going to be crucial in our AI world more than ever before. And so our goal really is to work to shape education to be more human-centered, to move into a new age of learning called the human intelligence age. Excuse me. And we do that through three ways. One is through building awareness, so spreading the message through speaking, talking with people like yourself, through just really pushing people's thinking to say, okay, what does it mean to have this age of AI, and what are we going to do about this as humans? How are we going to come together to preserve what makes us uniquely human and elevate that? And then the second is through a community of amazing, brilliant people. So we have over 350 founding members right now, over 3,000 followers of the movement. And those people coming together to solve these, to solve this problem, this wicked problem in education, is what it's going to take to make change. And so our work as a movement it's a grassroots organization. People are volunteering their time, sharing their expertise, their ideas, and really coming together in a sense of community. And I believe really strongly in that is the power of change, when you can bring people together to solve problems. And the last thing that we are focused on is policy change. And I'll speak from the lens of United States education systems. Our policy is really focused on accountability measures for schools, holding schools accountable to meeting standardized assessments that are really measuring knowledge. And so as we move away from this knowledge age into a human intelligence age, we need to shift policy to measure uniquely human skills and ensure that all of our students graduating from our K-12 institutions are prepared to be career ready and life ready in the age of AI. And we believe strongly that these accountability measures need to shift to be more balanced. And so that is the third focus of the human intelligence movement. So I told you a little bit about what it is and the different ways that we are functioning. Overall, the purpose is really to shape the future of education for an AI world, to ensure that all students are successful and can thrive in the world that we live in.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. I think the purpose of human intelligence movement is to create awareness, foster community building, and driving the policy change. And totally agree with the point that with the rise of artificial intelligence, it is able to advocate for reshaping education to be more human-centered, focusing on adaptability, communication, and of course empathy, which is the need of the hour. And it promotes shifting from the information age to the age of human intelligence, emphasizing that what makes us uniquely human and embracing ourselves while preparing for an AI-driven future. And the movement aims, like you said, to spark change through awareness, connection, and shaping policies for career readiness for the students. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dr. Michelle. And moving on to my next question is, Dr. Jordan, if you could talk about how do you define human intelligence in the context of AI integration?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we only have so little time together. I feel like I could talk about it for a very long time, so I'll try to be brief.
Go ahead.
I think, as we think about what human intelligence is, especially related to Michelle's answer, we've really focused, especially in education, on such a small subset of skills and types of knowledge, right? But yet, being human is much more than just your math score or your reading comprehension, right? Being human is about being with other people. It's about the socio-emotional life. It's about this rich interior landscape that we have as unique human beings. And so there is this very different kind of intelligence that cannot cannot be replicated in the realm of artificial intelligence, certainly as we understand it now. But I might go so far as to say ever. I think that the nature of being a human and the way in which we understand the world is about process. It is never this fixed point where we arrive and we have all of the knowledge and we have everything that we need. But we are always in the process of developing further and asking better questions, right? Ideally along the journey. And so I think that when we think about defining what human intelligence is in the context of AI integration, we need to understand that there are these rich capacities that we have as humans to experience joy, to experience wonder, to remain curious about the world around us. And it's not just us doing that, it's us with other people like we are right now, right? And so there's this other rich tapestry of what it means to have human intelligence that is about being with people, engaging in conversation, sharing in ideas. And I think that the sense that we get right now from so much of education, it is about the individual achieving in such a small subset of skills, when in reality, we are people in community with one another. And that ability to be alongside of others needs to be cultivated more richly in schools. And so when we talk about socio-emotional intelligence, when we talk about these community capacities, I think those are also deeply, deeply important types of intelligence that right now we don't often think about testing, right? We don't have neat and tidy ways for testing those types of things. And again, from the perspective of the American education system, something that I often talk about is, we have preschool and kindergarten where we try and teach young children what it is to share and what it is to be patient. And then we kind of pretend for the rest of formal schooling that those things are wrapped up and that we don't have to go back and revisit any of that. In reality, we're always developing those skills, right? And we just kind of move past them and pretend that other things are more important, like whether you can do complex calculus when you get to high school, right? But I think that we can hold these kinds of tensions alongside of one another and realize that absolutely no one is arguing against learning math or sciences or those types of things. But there's also this whole other category of what it means to be a person that is absolutely essential to being a human being, that AI integration needs to understand and also can never really replicate.
Absolutely.
I would, no, go ahead if you want to respond. I was going to share one more.
No, please go ahead.
I was
Love
just,
to hear you.
I think Jordan's absolutely right. And it is sometimes where we think it's a one and done kind of approach to building these skills, and it's an ongoing thought process. I think one of the things that with the movement that we are trying to do is this is one of those wicked problems we're trying to figure out. We're thinking a lot about human intelligence as skills that you need and also mindsets or dispositions you need in an AI world. And so, for example, being creative, that's a hot topic often when we talk about, is AI creative or not? And I would, AI can create some music and it can create some artwork, but what is the level to which it can create something that makes, to what degree can we think about humans in elevating that idea of creativity? We often talk about the lack of heart and soul in an AI, that to be creative, to create something like music or art that is driven by emotion, it's driven by passion, it's driven by lived experiences. And while AI might be able to create something that represents artwork or represents music, it truly is lacking that heart and soul behind it. So what we're trying to do as a movement is really think about defining what are those human intelligences that cannot be replicated by AI. And we have a team of people devoted to researching this and really defining what is human intelligence. And that's part of that community. We have a community focused on research and some brilliant people bringing their strengths and talents into the organization to really be able to do that. So I think today, Jordan and I are bringing to you an idea of what human intelligence means in the context of AI or integration. But what we're racing to do is really find the research or the proof points behind this so that the community at large can begin to understand and like I said, elevate the need for this in our day-to-day schools.
True, I absolutely agree with that. And I remember having a discussion with my teacher at school last week. We were just discussing about the emerging technologies, and even though this is a topic that is important, I think she was saying that maybe we might not have our jobs anymore in the future. You will all study with artificial intelligence. And I remember talking with my friend about it, like while we were discussing with her, that ma'am, nothing can replace a teacher, because the social emotional learning element, the creativity, and most importantly the empathy is what you have, because you are able to understand our emotional aspect. But of course AI can't. It'll be an addition to help you, but of course it can't replace you. And like you said, in the context of AI integration, human intelligence is defined more than just academic achievements like math scores. It encompasses the social emotional aspects of life that AI cannot and absolutely cannot replicate. So being human is about, like you said, the ongoing process of growth, asking questions, experiencing joy, going through the highs and lows, and coming back stronger, wonder, and of course, having more and more meaningful interactions with like minded individuals, learning from them, sharing with them, and sharing ideas, engaging in conversations, and developing more and more qualities like patience, empathy, teaching young minds about the importance of connection and how it is important to be an individual, learning from others, and giving your perspective. So again, a lot of things that AI can do, but we also have a lot of skills at which we stand out, and which of course AI cannot replicate. Thank you. All right. My next question is for Dr. Michelle. How do you see the role of educators evolving in an AI driven world? And can you also please elaborate on the skills? Like we were talking about AI not replicating. So if you could talk about more and in depth about the skills that AI cannot replicate.
Well, I think about the traditional classroom today is really, when I picture a traditional classroom, I think of students sitting in rows, sitting in desks, facing forward in a classroom, ready to receive information. They're sitting, an individual is by themselves. They're not necessarily sitting with a group, and they're waiting for that teacher to bring information to them. And that style of traditional teaching is really what I see evolving. And I will say, not every classroom looks like this. I understand there's a continuum of evolution happening across our schools. And what I'm going to describe is a lot of classrooms do look like this. But what I want to see is each and every classroom where the teacher is become the facilitator of learning. They are no longer there to disseminate knowledge or provide all of the information. What their job is as a facilitator is to create the conditions for students to be in learning that looks more like the real world. So when we think about our day-to-day work, it is very collaborative. You're solving problems together. You're sharing ideas. You're building off one another. You're having to communicate externally and internally with people. And so I really see the role of the educator thinking about what does our current work, day-to-day work and careers look like, and then replicating that style into the classroom to create communities where like I said, students are collaborating more to build some of those skills that AI can't replicate. So if we go back to what some of those skills are, we think about high levels of communication with other humans. And I think to have high levels of communication and collaboration, we need to have really strong opportunities to build relationship with each other and understand the value of multiple perspectives, understand that different lived experiences, different cultures are going to have different ways of thinking and ways of approaching, and having a level of a high level of respect for one another and seeing a value in those perspectives. So I think that's, one of the things when I think about communication and collaboration, it isn't simply just being able to share ideas, but being able to really see value and respect for one another. I think that's that relationship skills, that's that empathy building, and emotional intelligence. I think that also a huge part of what we'll need to see in classrooms going forward is how to use AI, what it means to start with your own human intelligence and then apply that to the use of a tool. And what are some ways that we need to be discerning for bias, for inaccuracy? And that is a huge, we can talk about AI literacy, and that is a huge skill set that educators need and also that students will need. And so for me, it's about the evolving role of the educator to being a facilitator, a designer of learning experiences that mirror and reflect the real world. And we can think about those maybe as simulated experiences in the classroom, and with an emphasis on those durable skills, those human intelligences, and elevating those, focusing on those attributes and skills rather than having to think about all the knowledge I have to cover or all the content I have to cover. And so to me as an educator, I've been a teacher for close to 30 years. That is so exciting to me to think about a shift in my role as being more human-centered versus content-centered. And I think that is a much needed and refreshing approach to teaching. I often talk about it as the art of teaching. I would make a guess that 99% of teachers went into education so that they could be in relationship with students and have that human-centered connection. And I think our systems have focused so much on covering content and covering information that we've stripped away that ability to be a facilitator of learning. And so I think it's really refreshing for educators to think about the opportunity there. Jordan, what would you say about the evolving role of the educator in the AI world?
Yeah, the transition from kind of the traditional role of delivering information to the facilitator of knowledge growth and development seems like the most appropriate way to think about what that evolution hopefully looks like, right? I think the space for reclaiming some of that relationship building job that educators have found themselves in positions, and I think that both of us are very much in alignment that like that's not on the educator, right? I think we've built a system perhaps that likely has pushed some of that, if not much of that relationship building to the periphery in favor of this content and testing and that kind of mentality, and to have AI provide a space, not as a replacement, right? Certainly for educators, as Navia mentioned earlier, but to provide them an ability to perhaps be more authentically and fully themselves in a classroom, to eliminate some of the logistical burdens where possible, or some of the bureaucratic concerns, in order to reclaim some of that time to refocus towards relationship building. And again, that facilitation of individual growth and collective growth in a classroom seems incredibly vital. And it does seem like it's hopefully a moment certainly in light of the collective work of the human intelligence movement, where we're trying to really leverage this technology, not as a means of going back to an older version before it existed, but as a means of using it intentionally to dream this different future into existence around what education can be and likely should be for learners.
What do you think about that idea of the evolving role of teachers, Namia? I'm curious how you envision teachers needing to evolve.
Absolutely, like indeed, with both of your thoughts that teachers have to be the facilitators and the designers, because when it comes to artificial intelligence, they don't need to be scared or think about how it may affect their job or how it can affect them in the future. But they should look at the positive side, that how it can help them, and most importantly, how it can help the students, because like you said, most teachers get into the education field just to get more connection with the students, to be able to interact with more people, shape more lives. So I totally would agree with your points that it would help them to shape the individuals that they are teaching in the classroom with more humanistic skills, with more skills that they need in the future. Like we all talk about 21 CLD, which are more important. So with inculcation of AI, it can help them to teach more students in the most prolific way. And that can help them to become the real world learners with the real world skills that they need, which of course AI cannot replicate. While AI think can handle technical tasks, educators will be able to focus on building those essential human skills like communication or respecting diverse opinions, like you said, and most importantly, valuing different perspectives. Because we, with the previous podcast I had with one of my guests, Dr. Dan Rosenberg, we were talking about how important it is to go ahead and agree to disagree. Most importantly, know how to put our opinion forward, and then valuing other person's perspective. So that is where I could get your point more importantly, because we need to know how to share up our opinion, but at the same time need to know how to value others as well. And educators will be also able to teach us in a way how we have to use AI responsibly, even though it has a lot of perks, but still we need to know how to be safe while we use it. So all they have to be is more confident and know how to see the positive side of AI and use it for the best in their classrooms. That would be my opinion here.
Mhm. Well, it's great
Thank
to hear from you as a student right now in school and how you see the role of the educator needing to evolve.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And like, I've seen my teachers as well, like they have been using different methods in the classroom with help of
Mhm.
AI. And they even encourage us, like if we have to make our work easier, they encourage us to explore more with different artificial intelligence tools. But then they tell us that not to totally depend upon it, because
Yeah,
that would not help us in the future. So we should work smart, not hard, but not totally be dependent upon AI, because that will make us sluggish and we won't focus on studying properly.
and do you agree with that advice?
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it is important that we not totally depend on it. It can help us, but if we totally depend on it, then we won't be able to stand out, like we were talking about certain skills AI cannot replicate. But if
Right.
we depend on it, then there will be no skills left in us, which I think AI will be able to replicate if we don't stand out. And that's when we don't depend on it, so we'll be able to get the edge from AI.
What's a way that you use AI to be smart? Well, you said work smarter, not harder. What's a way
Nice.
that you use that?
Well, actually, like I create my podcast promos. So I've been using like Adobe Chat GPT kind of a few times to create my promotional graphics. So earlier used to be I had to go ahead and search over Adobe or Canva to get different graphics and then combine them all together. But now all I have to go is I need to add like, let's say there are 7 graphics I have to make, and I add what each graphic should look like, and then it creates those for me. I just have to go add a few quirks here and there, put that in the editor, and then post it. So that cuts like half of my time instead of researching for more graphics, all I have is a few graphics ready. I just have to make a few changes of color combinations or of the photos I need to add, and it's ready. So this is my personal favorite way of making promos. And besides that, I think it also helps me for research purposes in the class. So if a teacher has given me a project, of course I won't just go chat GPT, tell me the answer and I'll paste it. I will go ahead, explore with different aspects. Of course, I'll research on the search engine, but to get a concise information, then I'll just say summarize this for me. And another favorite way of mine is using chat PDF. Give me summaries of all the chapters I have to learn. So one day before the exam, I have the summaries that it makes for me. So instead of reading the entire PDF, I have the summary, I read it, and I'm ready for the exam. So a few of the ways I love to use AI.
Yeah, that sounds very, you found some great efficiencies. But the other thing I heard you talk about is that you're really using higher order thinking. So when you have all of your promos made, you've given some vision, some direction to the AI, and then as it populates, you're really having to evaluate whether it matched what you wanted, what your vision was, and evaluate just all sorts of things. And that higher level thinking, I feel like sometimes we often don't get to that in our process of creating or building things, because it takes so long to just get the ideas formulated and start to build the initial product, that you don't get to that evaluation stage, which is the highest form of thinking. So it almost feels like not only are you creating efficiencies, but you're also able to use your human intelligences to a really high degree as you evaluate and synthesize information.
Yep, thank you so much. Right. Okay, moving on to our next question. That is for you again, Dr. Michelle. So I want to ask you, how can schools begin to implement these human-centered skills in their curriculums? And again, how can we as students cultivate adaptability and complex problem-solving skills?
Well, you just said something that really highlights the ways that we can implement human-centered skills, and that is to really focus on real world relevancy and real world problem solving. And so I think one of the ways that schools can begin to do this is by centering the learning in a way that, like I said, simulates what is happening in the real world, having opportunities for students to learn by doing. And so I really believe experiential learning is the way that for our schools to begin to do this. And by that, I mean providing experiences where students get to try something and apply skills in a new way, and really reflect on that and think about what did they learn along the way. I'm really describing right now a focus on the process of learning. Our schools have really been focused on learn. Here's content. And now let me give you a test at the end of the unit or the end of the chapter to see how much you know from this content. I mean, you kind of just said it where you summarize a body of, a PDF or a textbook, and then you summarize that information. And now you're ready for the test. You're working to get ready for the test. And that is so typical of our knowledge-based traditional education system, where we need to start designing learning experiences where students are learning along the way, and they're using information in a way that is more focused on the process of learning. And through that process of learning, you're trying something, you're failing, you're persevering, you're able to think about how would you do it differently? How would you interact with the people on your team or in your group differently? And I often think about simulating real world problem solving in the classroom is an opportunity for students to try that in a real world way, but in a safe environment. And so that could look a number of ways. Maybe you simulate a business event where a group has to come up with a new idea for a new product and how they might promote that in the real world. And that's just one off the top of my head. I think there's a lot of ways to bring experiential learning into the classroom. And I think with that, we also have to start thinking differently about homework and what it means to do homework, because we often, I'm guessing you would agree that as you go home it's really about read a chapter, answer these questions, read a chapter, write an essay about what you are learning. And I think that what the new way of thinking about homework is really about experiencing something in the classroom and now go apply that skill in the real world. And so maybe if we go back to this idea of listening to diverse perspectives, so during the learning experience, we're really capitalizing on sharing our ideas and really thinking about what others are sharing and how does that change or modify my idea. So we're practicing that in the classroom. And then the homework is go home and find someone that has a different idea than you, listen to what their idea is, write down what you agree, what you disagree, identify in what ways did your idea change because of who you talk to. That's a real world skill that we need to be developing. And the homework, for lack of a better, I don't even love the term homework. The application is to go use that in the real world. And I think that's the key, is that we have to begin to be bridging what's happening in school to application in our day-to-day worlds. We can't just save up and hope that once students graduate, now they're going to go apply all of these things they learned in their K-12 education in their day-to-day world, in their career. It has to be done along the way. And it can be from our youngest learners all the way up to our high school learners. And I think you asked, how can we cultivate adaptability and complex problem solving? It's by that process of learning, putting students into experiences where they need to be using it in the classroom, and then giving an assignment, an application in their day-to-day worlds, because that's what makes it like learning. Learning only happens by doing, and you have to have an opportunity to apply. Otherwise, it's just information in and information out. And so that stickiness of learning really comes through experiential learning or learning by doing. And so that's kind of how I see schools beginning to get more human-centered, is by really providing a experience that emulates what we are aiming for in the real world. Jordan, what do you think? Do you have a different how of schools can implement this?
No, I think, I don't know if it's different, but I think coming to what has been sort of put into the room is acknowledging too that if you want to cultivate adaptability and complex problem solving, put people in situations with other people, right? I think like at the end of the day, there is no better solution to being adaptable than having to work with other human beings, knowing that like we all view problems, even if we're approaching it through the same lens, we are all individuals, right? And so having to navigate that complexity of various opinions in a space, various approaches, different values, different metrics for how that happens. I think that sense of building community in a classroom space, in a learning environment, is, again, in many ways, ideally a microcosm of the real world, right? Like, I think for a long time, we have told stories of high accomplishing individuals. We can call them geniuses. If you want to take like Einstein or whoever you would like to cite as an example of that, and we pretend that somehow they did all of this themselves, when in reality they were building on the work of others and in conversation with other human beings. And it's not to diminish the efforts of those individuals, but it is to say that at the end of the day, they were only capable of being themselves because they were capable of being with other people and learning from other human beings. And so I think that space around adaptability and problem solving, another incredible way to think about that classrooms, to Michelle's original point of thinking of these rows of individual students, put people in community with one another, have diverse groups working together, not only inside of a single classroom, but across grade levels or across disciplines, right? And our schools have not been set up necessarily to do that type of thing. We go from a math class and the bell rings, and then we go to a science class and the bell rings. But many of these great accomplishments were people capable of bringing together these radically different strands of thought. So I would say that for me, that sense of being in the company of others and having to share and work through that diversity of thought and opinion and process, and also being able to pull those threads from a variety of different areas, those are really incredible possibilities that are right there for us to grasp, and they don't cost anything. We don't need to build new buildings to do that, right? But they are immediate solutions and tactics in many ways to thinking about how we might build those types of skills right now.
Jordan, I just have to applaud you for that idea on really creating opportunity for interdisciplinary learning, and then just the challenge of our school system to break down kind of the traditional structures we've put in place. So it's, I go back to, like, we have a lot of teachers across the world really trying to change what education looks like and really wanting to create the type of learning that Jordan and I are talking about today. I see it all the time and I hear from them. And I think we have just created structures and put systems in place that make it almost impossible for them to do that. A 45-minute math class or a 45-minute at any kind of class in our secondary where they run bell to bell to bell, you can barely get started with anything, let alone get into any learning flow. And now it's time to go. And so I want to name that. I think our teachers, our educators are really that are listening to this podcast and are really probably more progressive in their thinking on how they want to change what education looks like, provide experiences for students. And in many ways, it's our educational system that has them stuck in a way of learning that's more traditional. At least all the educators I talk to. Jordan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that there are many fantastic educators out there who are trying to do really good work and are confronted with the multiple hurdles that the system has put in place, right? And so, I echo what I mentioned earlier. Like, none of this is meant to suggest that no one is doing this work, right? There are many, many fantastic teachers in the world who are pushing that boundary and thinking in very similar ways to what Michelle and I are talking about here. And I think that, again, part of that human intelligence movement and something that we hope to cultivate there is that it is a place for those like-minded individuals, right, to come and to be empowered by others, to hear of others' great practices, and then to hopefully, again, build this place where we might leverage some of that to shift these deeply embedded systems.
Absolutely. And, listening to the both of you, I think in an AI-driven world, as educators will shift towards, and I think are now shifting towards, creating learning environments that actually simulate real-world challenges. And they guide students, in hands-on learning, where failing, trying again, and doing things differently are encouraged. And like you said, learning by doing, wherein educators can promote a safe space for our students to engage in practical problem solving, like you gave an example of business simulations, which are going to help to foster skills like adaptability, creativity, resilience. And to cite a example that I have had in the previous grade, in grade 11, so it's a part of a political science subject in I'm in humanities, that's arts. So we were talking about how different judgments are passed or a bill is introduced. So we were taken to the Vidhan Sabha, that is known as the State Legislative Assembly, that is a legislative body for the states and union territories of India. So it's the lower house of the state legislature in states that have bicameral legislature. And we went there to see a session of the state legislature, and we could see how a bill is passed. So it was different than just reading in the classroom for the book that yes, the bill is passed. But when we see it, that's again an example of learning by doing or learning while you actually see it. So I think if teachers are engaging us in activities wherein whatever is being taught through that 300 pages of the book, we're able to replicate that by doing something or by actually seeing it. I think that is how it's going to help us to use that particular skill in the future or be able to relate to it. So thank you so much for sharing that. Indeed. Right. So we also have a lot of comments coming in the chat for us. So let's quickly go through them. We have Mr. Prableen Singh. Thank you so much for joining. We have Sean McLaughlin here. Good afternoon. Just catching the
Sean,
train.
yeah, Sean is one of our founding members. It's so great to see
Ooh.
you, Sean.
Yay, that's amazing. We have Miss Monica Joshi. We have, I'm so positive about today's discussion. Artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human intelligence. It is a tool to amplify human creativity and ingenuity.
Monica, I just want to shout out that word amplify right there, because I think that is a perfect verb to describe why we would use artificial intelligence for human intelligence. That's perfect.
Indeed. Revolutionizing the educational scenario. Absolutely. I love to learn and learn a lot from Nama each day, especially from her depth in poetry. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm so happy this conversation is happening. Nama is a student with so much humanity. Thank you so much. Exactly, Dr. Michelle and Dr. Jordan, comprehensive aspect of excelling in every field, keeping the educator at a central point with AI as the tool of reforms will surely lead to more opportunities.
Yeah, I would have to echo the idea of keeping the educator at the center. And I think that's everything with AI is keeping the human at the center will lead to more opportunities. If we don't do that, we will not maximize what the potential is in our AI world.
Absolutely. And definitely learning by doing and applying the concepts in the reality marks the best learning.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Right. So I have a fun question for the both of you. Different though. The first one I have is for Dr. Michelle. What is your favorite cuisine?
This is actually a really hard question, because do I have to only pick one?
You can pick more if you want.
Okay, I will.
I don't have one either. I have one.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow. I really like Mexican food. I love the flavors. I love things that are spicy. So salsas and queso and all of the meats that carne and so on. So Mexican food would be one of my favorites. And I live in Minnesota, which is so not spicy, very very, very good food, but basic food. So I'm always searching for great Mexican food. And then the other is Thai food, because again, I love the flavors. Now we're talking about completely different flavors, but I like the spice in Thai food and just the richness of the flavors. So I guess if I had to summarize into a favorite cuisine, it would be something that has richness and flavor.
Indeed, about the Thai food, when I was in grade 5, that's the first time I went to Thailand, I absolutely despised the flavor. But when I went last year, I think maybe your taste buds evolved. I'm like every day I want to have it. It was like really amazing. So I agree with that. And of course, Dr. Jordan, what superpower would you like to possess if you could choose one?
So I grew up reading a lot of comic books, so you're asking a good nerdy question based upon my history, and I mean nerdy in a good way. I think I would have to go with reading other people's minds. I think I would be.
Same here.
I'm always like I'm a deeply curious person, and I'm always trying to read the room and try to understand where people are coming from. I would do it respectfully, like I wouldn't want to like know everything. I'm not trying to like dig around in there, but I think knowing like what other people are feeling and thinking in a situation is a really, some people have that superpower anyway, who are like really empathic. I love that idea.
Mentalists.
Yeah, but I think that reading other people's minds might be a good one to have.
True. I mean, it's the best thing that politicians can have, diplomats. That will be the best superpower they would want to possess. Indeed. All right. So, moving on to my next question for you is how can individuals and organizations get involved in the human intelligence movement? This is for you, Dr. Jordan. And of course, Dr. Michelle, we would love to have you pitch in.
Why don't you should take this one, Michelle, if that's okay.
Jordan, why don't you tell really quick how you got involved? I think that's a great story, and then I'll kind of give people all the information in order to get involved.
Yeah. So I think it comes back to like a lot of what Michelle and I value about the work and the process. But I was lucky enough to encounter Michelle at a face-to-face conference of all things. And through some interactions, realized that we had this very similar view, and she shared that her and Travis were in the process of starting this fantastic project. And it resonated so much with me. My background is in art and arts education. And so I think a lot about what it is to be human and how we make things, and what it means to make art and be creative. And so in this ongoing conversation, Michelle shared that this was something that she was deeply interested in, and was interested in putting energy and her wisdom and expertise behind. And I quickly fell in love with the idea of how this thing could not only resonate with me as a person and this very deeply human level, but also the possibility of having positive impact in the world, knowing that it is this vision of both bringing people together, but also bringing people together with a purpose and with a shared value system to see this kind of effective systems-based change that we deeply care about. So yeah.
It was a great conversation. Jordan's actually one of our first founding members when we met. It was great that he believed in what we wanted to do and believed that we could make it happen, and then joined us along the way. So we're looking for more people who really, where this message resonates with them, where they want to help create awareness, solve problems in community, and help us really shape policy around the world. And so there's a couple of ways to get involved. First, you can find us at you can find us online at humanintelligencemovement.org. I'm sure you'll have the links in your show notes and so on. And on our website, you'll get all kinds of information about who we are, what we stand for, what we're trying to do. And there's an opportunity there to join the movement. We are accepting 500 founding members. So we are almost at 400 founding members. And once we reach 500 founding members, we'll no longer accept founding members, but we'll start to create a membership that you can subscribe and be a part of. So this isn't the end of the opportunity, but there is a place where our founding membership will start to end. And so now's the time. If you're excited, you're interested, don't delay, head to the website, check us out, apply to be a founding member. The next way that you can get involved is just follow our work. You'll find us on all of the social channels. We'll post our access on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. We're everywhere. And we are hosting a virtual summit on November 7th, 8th, and 9th. We have some amazing keynote speakers, some great thought leaders bringing their ideas. But most importantly, this virtual summit is an opportunity to come together in community. And so we're looking for people who want to just network with one another and share their ideas. This marks the official launch of the Human Intelligence Movement, this virtual summit that we are hosting. And from there, we are just going to take off and soar. The other thing that I just want to name for you and your audience is we are starting to create a student-led chapter. And so I would love, Namia, for you to be part of the Human Intelligence Movement. Bring all of your great student leadership into this organization. We've talked a lot today about teachers and administrators, but students are at the heart of why we're doing this. And so bringing in student voice, student leadership to help us shape this is very needed. And so we're just getting, I've always known I wanted students as part of the Human Intelligence Movement, but it's taken us a little bit to get ourselves situated and get ourselves ready to go. And now it's time to bring those student leaders in and really help us shape the future of education. So I would encourage any students that are listening, young people listening, to please join us, and you go to humanintelligencemovement.org.
Absolutely. And it'll be an honor, I'm sure, for all the students as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle and Dr. Jordan. It was amazing talking to both of you today. And it just reminded me of this fact that amidst the rise of AI, it's the human spirit, our ability to connect, empathize, and inspire that will always lead the way. So thank you so much for sharing your valuable thoughts with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining and listening to this episode. And I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one, teach 10. Have a nice day.
Thank you.